Anxiety is one of the most common mental disorders that affects nearly 1/3 of adults' population at some point of their life. At early stages, it can be easily treated. However, if it's not addressed early, it can develop into severe mental health issues. As an instructor of neurology with 5 years of experience, I myself and hundreds of my students found out that anxiety is one of the easiest conditions to be treated with neurographic art. Most of us are probably familiar with symptoms of anxiety: restlessness, inability to make decisions, irritability, and even a sense of impending danger. On the physical level, and the body doesn't lie, that can be manifested as chronic tiredness, fatigue, headaches, loss of appetite, sleep, and digestion disorders. But fear or not, in Neurographica, we have a powerful tool that can deal with anxiety. Creating art as a sense of control. It also engages the whole body. Focusing on creating drawing diverts the mind from spinning into repetitive thought pattern and directing it to the drawing. Most important, creating art increases dopamine level, and dopamine is known as a pleasure hormone. Dopamine is responsible for motivation, better focus, and a feeling of pleasure. You may be thinking, I'm not an artist and I don't like drawing. Neurographica is not about creating art. Moreover, studies showed that drawing lines and circles is the most helpful tool in reducing anxiety. And Neurographica is all about creating lines and circles. So if you can hold a pencil, you definitely can draw lines and circles. My experience showed that mastering this kind of drawing is much easier than trying to learn meditation and other stress-reducing techniques. Before beginning, I would like to encourage you to approach this practice with open mind and heart. I am not a medical professional. If you have any questions and doubt, please consult your therapist. And now, follow me and let's begin our 30-minute tutorial. I'm going to demonstrate a very simple technique based on Neurographica. And for this, we need a very simple art supplies, such as you see markers, coloring pencils, or anything that you need. Even if you have a pen, that will work as well. But that I am showing regular tools that we use in Neurographica. It's an inexpensive technique, and the quality of your drawing, your healing effect, the overall effect does not depend on the quality of your supplies. Only if you want to use them as artwork, then quality matters. Otherwise, just use very simple tools that you have here. And before we start with a simple technique that's known in Neurographica as the algorithm or technique for removing inner constraints, I would like to show a couple of elements that are essential for completing this drawing. First, you need to know what the neurographic line is, or neuroline. Neurographic line. By definition, this line doesn't repeat itself, and they extend where we do not expect to see it. But at the very beginning, I suggest that you focus on the first statement. That will be enough. The line that doesn't repeat itself. This means that it doesn't have a pattern. It's unpredictable, and that's very important for the work we're going to do and how we can affect our neural pathways. So if you can see, this area, this segment doesn't equal this one and that one. Of course, if you enlarge, zoom in a computer, you will be able to see that there's straight parts that are similar, but for our own eyes. Having said that, so make sure that the line, as there are no straight lines in nature, that's only the invention of the human brain, the human mind. So if we have like a line, straight line, we apply the neurographic line or neural line that doesn't repeat itself. So we just wave with the hand and just we observe and concentrate that there is no repetition, there is no pattern. This means that the mind cannot anticipate, and no matter how it wants to control, it cannot Well, that's important. I explained that the importance of this in my classes, but for now, let's focus that we do not create a pattern. Like, for example, pattern I call repeating elements like this. It's very beautiful and it's very nice, and also has a produce a calming effect, that rhythmic movement, but this is not Neurographica. As well as a straight line is not Neurographica. The second element that's very important for our drawing today is the principle of rounding. And that simply states that if we have two or more neurographic lines, and when they cross, we create an element that looks like this. One neurographic line and then another one that crosses it. And where the two meet, cross each other, they create two angles. Even four angles, but two sharp, typically one up to. So what happens when our visual, and that's very deep ingrained in our brain, that the elements such as circle, gives in very interesting and positive signals in our brain. It's very deep in our, overcome by our conscious mind. So that's very deep in our brain. But positive. It's infinite, it's symmetrical, it's round, it can't hurt us. Most importantly, it can't hurt us because it's round. And also positive associations like with the sun, with the moon. The triangle is also an ancient symbol, and it has a deep meaning. Deep meaning because of its sharp edges. That, for us, they indicate danger, the physical level. Even if we do not consciously aware of it, a shattered glass on the ground, like lying like this, feels uncomfortable. Even if we see a knife pointing at us, lying on the counter, it's not comfortable. So similar, that visual image of triangle and the sharp corners, not positive for us. So what would we do? That's we call rounding, the principle of rounding, and we make this appearance softer by our own hand. We create such U shape, and we once again around, and that's one of the most visual characteristic of neurographic drawing. And its result, the image appears much softer. Not only that, because we always have a theme, an intention for Neurographica drawings. If this drawing was associated with a particular topic and it had the results, like for example, let's say confidence, self-confidence, yes. We can change our appearance, and that we will see in our next drawing and the next exercise that you will be able to experience yourself. So that is one of the important features for Neurographic drawing, the principle of rounding. Also, there is another important element in rounding. Why we do rounding? It's connection. A connection depends. The more we connect, the better. And as we were drawing in a two-dimensional plane, the world is three-dimensional. We do not know. We can look at this. We do not know whether the lines intersect or do not, or they're in different planes. And this is important. If every line definitely represents some impulse or thought in our brain, that there is something forced us to do this, something inspired us to do that, but to have this positive effect and creative, that's connection is important. So those rounding elements, when we call it rounding, also represent a connection between the two lines, two or more. And that this is very important for indicating a connection and neurons, between neurons. They are neurons, they are brain cells. Unfortunately, this is a very short class at the very beginning. I cannot go into depth explaining that, but I always give a lot of time and attention to this particular element in my regular classes. And one more element I would like to mention is important for Neurographica, is that all the elements are connected. For example, if we have a few shapes here, and we use the neurographic line to connect them. The idea is, of course, that everything is, our universe is connected, interconnected, and these lines represent connections. Okay, and now we're ready to start our drawing. Firstly, I would like you to think about the theme. Intent of this drawing. We always use Neurographica with a theme. It's not just a drawing. Of course, it could be as artwork, but it also has a purpose, intention. It's something I suggest not think too much. It's something that first comes in mind and something that you would like to change. Could be an emotion, like for example, irritation in specific, something simple. Like for example, we want a change from what is now, something in the future. Do not take a very big topic like, for example, I mentioned self-confidence. It's a lot of work. It's something simple. So for example, I'm a little bit concerned about a short class that I'm going to offer next Tuesday. And just to make it smoother, it's going to, to help this process, make myself calmer and more relaxed. So that's I write it class Tuesday. So that's about my subconscious mind knows, and I don't have to restate it again because I gave it a direction. That could be very simple. For example, you may be annoyed by your spouse or your children that do not do dishes. You may be annoyed by a neighbor's dog barking. You may be annoyed by you would like to change your attitude and strengthen your desire to do exercises in the morning. No, this is not a very not charged topic because in general I'm calm. That came to my mind. It indicates that definitely something hidden that otherwise I wouldn't have reacted. And the first thing we do this quick drawing, which is called Catharsis. So I suggest you can watch what I do, and then you can repeat it. Okay. So I focus on this topic. I breathe in and out a couple of times. And I express it as a very quick, unconscious, emotional outburst. So similar, but you get irritated, you take something, an object, and smash it on the floor. Release of energy. And I do it for 2 or 3 seconds, and it's like this. So, and I use, please, no, this is an old marker, the one I'm not concerned about damaging it. So it will be like this. Okay, this becomes an avatar of my feeling. And now what we do, you take the marker, the one that I'm going to use for drawing. I would like to use this one just to make sure that, yeah, it's dark enough so it will cover this line. At the very beginning, markers are probably the best. They create a nice, it's easy to draw, and they create a nice wide line that's easy to work with and create this rounding and draw the line, the neurographic line. Well, what we're going to do next is to so-called stretching and releasing energy. Imagine that this is you, this is our feeling that, oh, we're so tight. We can do this, but what happens, what we can, I'm going, and I stretch, and I spread, and I release this energy that contained here into space. Again, I use the neurographic line. So from edge to edge, roughly. And I cover the line. I focus on the line as I'm drawing it. Focus in Neurographica is the most important. I watch my hand. It's more like similar to mindfulness, like practice of mindfulness. Just pay attention what happens to you. I'm feeling that a sense of relaxation. And every line that I draw adds to this feeling of relaxation. It's now it's done. And I start rounding the corners. It's okay to make the lines stronger. Actually, the impression, what we're trying to do in Neurographica, Neurographic Art, if you may know, is to change our impressions. So that's what I'm changing. So it's probably the stronger lines are better, is more impressive. Now I will pause my video and finish rounding, and we will meet in a couple of minutes. So you can see, so all the corners are rounded, even I included small thing here. So all these previous lines, remaining signs of catharsis, that emotional outbursts are rounded, no sharp corners. Some really tight area just covered, so they filled in. The transition between the lines. Okay, so now the next step on this one There's probably you're feeling some relaxation. And I apply colors. So how we can choose colors? And the first I suggest just intuitively. Just like you can see, I use inexpensive pencils, and how I select colors. I just choose one that I have an association. For example, if I want to feel calmer, I know the blue is probably one of the colors, and I apply. So one of the suggestions for Neurographica drawings is just that we color areas, not selectively one cell, like for example, but areas. And coloring the lines as well. So we just go back and forth, and there are often questions why would use only pencils in Neurographic, and not only pencils. You can use pastels, you can use some other coloring tools, highlighters, maybe markers as well. And it's nice light colors, but something that creates a line, not a paint, because when we are moving back and forth, and as I mentioned at the beginning, that every line is produced to the results of some thinking. That way, by connecting the two visually, we create those thoughts, and connections give us those creative thinking. That connection, the more connections we have, the better. So it's also in this specific technique, make sure that when you color, you do not leave too obvious pencil strokes. And I color minimum 2 or 3 adjacent cells. But typically I cover more than that, as it also helps not only visually affect us, but also create this feeling and integrate the entire drawing. First, we separated it by using lines, and now we're integrating with the colors. And the mind perceives these areas as something similar, related to each other. I like layering, I like overlaying colors. So you can color within the lines, or you can overlap the colors. Do not have to color absolutely everything. We'll leave white space for more nice, light, and airy feeling. And at the same time, I always make sure that I observe my emotions and my thoughts. First, I apply colors lighter, and I may strengthen them when I feel with more pressure, and create more intense colors. But this I do this in the final stages of my drawing. So one of the elements in this drawing, I also include so-called field lines. They're the most powerful lines that kind of align ourselves with the forces of the universe. But if this sounds too new age for you, if more like you may think about power lines, like the hydro power lines that deliver electricity from a source to a household. So not all of them are, they do not connect sources, big power lines, cables, from the source, from the station to a household, but they're taking, wires from those power lines. So, and this, I would say that these lines can be these field lines represent those power lines. How many? 2, 3 for this drawing. I feel like 1 here. So you can also notice that it kind of a direction going down. Yes. So if you think about my theme, it's something I'm feeling kind of anxiety by offering this class. It's the first time I'm going to offer it. So I want this anxiety go down. So that's why part of it, I direct this line down. If I wanted to increase something, for example, my level of confidence, or again, we're talking about patience, I would probably go up. One more line, and one more line I also add. So the line, these power lines, those field lines can follow and be exactly the existing lines, or they can be on their own. But also, there can be combination of existing lines and the lines on their own. Okay, I feel it's not something you can do from very beginning. It takes time to get used to those concepts. I decided that I want to have an extra line. It's just purely my feeling, intuition. And again, because they're wider, the difference that they're also neurographic lines, but they're wider. If you found out new corners, you can round them. New lines, new instances of lines, and I round them. Now we have this with 2 lines, like a flow going this way. And we even emphasize with my pencil now in this direction, this way. And the last element that in Neurographica we call it resolution, and our final figure, like focal point. And in this particular technique, it's either a circle, something round. So at the very beginning, we're working only with lines and circles. Lines and circles at the very beginning. And I'm looking for something round in part of my drawing. And that represents my final impression from this drawing. If you remember, my first impression was those scribble, it's called catharsis. So it's not visible anymore. We call it diffused it in the field. So it's not visible anymore. But I would like to create a new impression that will be more positive and more control. So I'm controlling now. That scribble was not conscious. It was like very quick without thinking. It was expression of my emotions in relation to that, my theme. Now I want to override that impression. And I am looking I look for the area that attracts me most of all. I'm looking, and it's very individual. I'm looking, and I see this one. And I also, since I'm looking for a circle, see, you can add that area that's probably kind of roundish, and attracts me. So I have like an arc here and a little bit here, indication. Again, that's something like feeling of it can be developed over time. So I just trust my hand, and it creates such a circle. So I use these lines, the existing lines, and I add new lines. And again, since it's resolution, we call it the anchor my feelings, I make it wider, wide line, as wide as my field lines. Because I'm trying to override my previous impression. I want to create new impression, which is stronger than my old one, than my original one, and not the one that was expressed in catharsis. And of course, the neurographic lines as well. So more like an egg shape. And I include it into this drawing by rounding. It's all connection. This figure is much more powerful now. You can add more colors. I also can strengthen it by adding colors. To strengthen this impression of something new. Please, and also, you may feel something uncomfortable reaction. That's typical, especially at the beginning. Right now, I do not like, it's a little bit too much, like this line that happened by surprise is a little bit too wide, a little bit too much than I'm used to. But as we're experiencing changes, a change is always not something comfortable for our mind. So you may experience some negative reactions, some feelings, because the mind, the brain, that resists change as it's uncomfortable and requires more energy to process new information. So my suggestion, if this happens, please remember to work on the drawing until you like it. That's the only criteria. It's not a work of art. The work of art is actually you. This is neurographic art is conceptual drawing, more important than the drawing. So now when I look at it, you can also always change it, and make sure there's no. So if you didn't want to mention, if you didn't see any figure, you can always rotate the drawing and see what's going on. Well, now it's pointing up. Maybe it's more interesting for me to see like something ascending. So if you can see the figure any round, any shape, you can rotate the drawing and find the most interesting and most interesting for your direction. That's you're working. Now I will work on the drawing a little bit more, and then you will see the final result. I think I like it like this. So, and I will finish it. A drawing like this typically takes about an hour to complete. No circles. I may add more lines from here if I feel like there's, you may add, but remember around all the new intersections. You observe yourself reaction on this drawing. You can continue working on it later and more. This drawing, the algorithm or technique for removing inner constraints, it's one of the main techniques in Neurographica, and it's probably one of the most useful. Thank you so much for your attention, and I wish you all the best with your drawing and in your life. Thank you for joining this drawing session. I very much hope that you experienced the effect of this drawing. If you're interested in learning more how you can use Neurographica as a tool for creating a new reality, please check my website, and the link is below. If you're interested in practicing Neurographic art as a stress-reducing technique, I have many tutorials available on my YouTube channel, so please have a playlist for reducing art, and please subscribe so you get notified when I publish new tutorial and new tips how to use Neurographic art. Enjoy your practice, enjoy your day.